이곳에서 무슨 일이 벌어진 겁니까?
일단 먼저 빨리 나가자.
저주?
Beginning of the movie, we see a recorder playing, from which a man's voice can be heard saying, sometimes it's called a curse, sometimes it's a lie, sometimes it's all true. The story I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but one thing is certain, I should not have come here, to the Goe-gi-maen-syon. With this starts, Chapter 1, The Author. A man named Ji-woo is seen taking photographs. He decides to enter the Goe-gi-maen-syon. As he steps inside, he looks around and hears a noise coming from the ceiling. Suddenly, a child appears behind him, but when he turns, no one is there. Shortly after, an old man enters the room. Ji-woo introduces himself and informs the old man that he is the one who made the call. The old man offers him tea. Ji-woo asks if he can record their conversation, assuring the old man that it is solely for his personal records and will not be published. The old man agrees. Ji-woo asks the old man to start with an introduction. The old man replies, "What's there to introduce? I'm just the caretaker here." Then he adds, "You mentioned you were a cartoonist?" Ji-woo nods in agreement. The old man asks, "Why would a cartoonist come here?" Ji-woo explains, "I've heard rumors about strange happenings here. Is it true?" The old man begins to share the story. A long time ago, this place was an orphanage. One day, there was a fire. The adults abandoned the children and ran to save themselves. All the children burned to death. Ever since then, strange rumors have been circulating. People claim to hear unusual noises. Even the man who moved in on the 5th floor said the same thing. He was an author. The scene shifts to the past, showing the author lying on the floor, listening intently to sounds. He hears the voices of children and asks the salesman, "Are there children living downstairs?" The salesman replies, "It's possible. Many children come and go during the holidays." He adds, "I live on the 7th floor. We can be neighbors, friend." The author says, "You are not my friend." The salesman then says, "The water supply here is excellent, sir." The scene transitions to the author working on his laptop. After a while, he gets up to prepare a drink for himself. Suddenly, he hears a noise from the floor tiles, and his drink bottle shakes slightly. Just then, he receives a call from his wife, who is shouting and upset because he moved into a new apartment alone. The author tries to explain, saying, "I'm here until I finish my book. I feel more comfortable working this way." She questions him, "What about our son? When are you coming back?" The author explains, "The book is almost done. Once it's finished, the three of us will live better." As he continues speaking, the flap of his laptop suddenly opens on its own and begins operating by itself. His wife's voice changes into a demonic tone, saying, "You are being very rude," before the call abruptly disconnects. Startled and confused, the author looks at his laptop and quickly shuts the flap. The next morning, the author visits a pharmacy and asks for medicine to treat a headache. Another man arrives and asks for mildew remover, but the author interrupts to point out that he was there first. The pharmacist directs the other man to a grocery store. The author hands over money, leaves without collecting the change. The author returns home and switches on his laptop. He heads to the refrigerator, and when he comes back, his laptop is missing. Suddenly, he hears someone laughing. He goes to check, and a door behind him slowly opens. As he moves to close it, he spots a shoe inside. Curious, he steps in and picks up the shoe, noticing the name Jean Woo Ram written on it. Suddenly, his laptop drops from above, and a child races past him at lightning speed. The author runs after the child, but finds no one. Alarmed, he goes to the security guard to review the CCTV footage, only to find no evidence of anyone entering or leaving. The author insists, "I saw a kid in my apartment." The security guard tries to calm him down, but the author retorts, "How can I be calm? My laptop is broken. What if I lose my data?" Frustrated, he adds, "Those kids are driving me crazy." The security guard then mentions that, "As far as I know, no one lives on the floor below yours." The author replies, "That's impossible. I hear noises from downstairs every day. It sounds like someone banging a stick against the ceiling." The security guard questions him, "You said your doors were locked. How could any kid get in?" The author chuckles. "So, you think I saw a ghost?" and laughs it off. He declares, "I'm going to check out room 404 myself." The scene cuts to the author heading to the room below his apartment. He knocks on the door, but no one answers. Growing curious, he peers through the window and notices several identical shoes resembling the one he saw in his apartment. His eyes land on a shoe rack, where he quickly spots the matching pair. His anger bubbles up, and he slams the shoe against the door, shouting for someone to open it. The author gathers all the shoes from the shoe rack into a trash bag and throws them into the garbage. Later that night, while he's sleeping, he hears a noise as if someone is trying to open his door. He wakes up, trembling with fear, and cautiously steps out to investigate. He attempts to switch on the light, but it doesn't turn on. He slowly opens the door and finds nothing outside. As he turns back, he finds the same trash bag filled with the shoes in his apartment. Terrified, he approaches the bag. Just then, a child dashes past him. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. Startled, he creeps toward the door and peers through the peephole. Outside, he sees 3 children standing with their backs turned, pointing upward. Before he can process the sight, a child suddenly appears right in front of him. The author stumbles backward. To his horror, the shoes from the trash bag are now scattered all around his apartment. Laughter echoes through the room, and as he looks up, he sees a group of children standing upside down. They all scream, and the scene abruptly cuts, marking the start of Chapter 2. The Pharmacist. It begins with Ji-woo's girlfriend giving him a book and telling him about a writer named Lee Hyung-hoon who disappeared 2 years ago without a trace. Later, we see Ji-woo visiting the caretaker again. Ji-woo asks the caretaker, "The author you mentioned, Lee Hyung-hoon, lived here and went missing 2 years ago?" However, the caretaker ignores his question and instead starts asking Ji-woo personal questions about his birthplace, hobbies, and whether he is seeing anyone. Then he adds, "Am I being too intrusive?" Ji-woo hesitates and replies, "It's not like that. I'm just not used to talking like this with my elders." The caretaker says, "People say that life changes depending on who you meet." He then begins telling another story, saying once, there was a woman living on the 9th floor. Ji-woo immediately starts taking notes as the caretaker continues. She was very beautiful and fashionable. She didn't belong in a place like this. She believed it was her fate, but she was dating the wrong guy. The scene shifts to the past, where we see the woman named Sun-hwa stepping out after a bath. In her room, the radio is playing news. She receives a call from her mother, who asks if she is dating anyone and advises her not to trust men. Sun-hwa replies that she isn't dating anyone and has no plans to, then disconnects the call. Afterward, she glances at a photograph of herself and her boyfriend and smiles. Suddenly, the radio begins to distort but returns to normal after a moment. The scene cuts to a day at the pharmacy when the author comes in to buy headache medicine. It is revealed that Sun-hwa is a pharmacist. Another man enters and asks for mildew remover, but the author points out that he was there first. Sun-hwa redirects the second man to the grocery store. As the author leaves, the Sun-hwa's colleague suddenly appears behind her, startling her. Sun-hwa says, "You said you wouldn't come in today." Her colleague replies, "What's the point of staying home? My son drives me crazy." Sun-hwa asks, "How does it feel to be married?" Her colleague smiles and counters, "Are you still dating that stupid married man?" Sun-hwa retorts, "He's married, but he's not stupid." At that moment, she receives a call from her boyfriend, Ho-jun, but he is breathing heavily on the phone. He says, "I'll come tonight." Concerned, she asks, "Is something wrong?" Ho-jun replies, "We'll talk about this later," and abruptly disconnects the call. Just then, her colleague enters the pharmacy from outside. Surprised, Sunwoo thinks, "She was just here with me. How is she coming in from outside now?" Later that night, Ho-jun arrives at the Sun-hwa's apartment. Seeing him wet, she asks, "Is it raining outside?" But he doesn't reply and goes straight to sit on the couch. After a pause, he tells her that his wife has discovered their affair. She responds, "That's good, just divorce her." "You were planning to divorce her anyway." Ho-jun looks at her and asks, "Are you saying I have to end my marriage?" She replies, "Yes, start a new life with me." Ho-jun stands up and Sun-hwa screams, "You wanted that too!" Ho-jun pleads, "Help me, let me stay here for a while, but don't tell anyone I'm here. If anyone asks, just say you don't know." Sun-hwa says, "Not just for a while," hugs him and continues, "Stay with me forever." Late at night, Sun-hwa hears the sound of water, as if someone is bathing. She tries to wake up Ho-jun, but he doesn't respond. Suddenly, the door to her room opens on its own. Stepping out to investigate, she notices that her radio is missing. As she turns toward the bathroom, she is startled to see a shadow watching her from inside. Gathering her courage, she cautiously approaches the bathroom door, opens it, and finds nothing there except her radio. The next morning, 2 police officers visit the pharmacy to meet Sun Hwa. They ask if she knows Ho-jun, explaining that he is wanted as a suspect in the murder of his family. They also inquire about his whereabouts, mentioning that they heard she is his girlfriend. Sun Hwa returns home, calling out for Ho-jun as she searches for him. She finds him in the shower and notices his blood-stained clothes lying nearby. Ho-jun cryptically says, "Don't tell anyone I showered here." Trying to conceal his blood-stained clothes, she confronts him, revealing that she knows everything. The police had visited her pharmacy looking for him, she says. "We need to get out of here right now." Ho-jun repeats, "Don't tell anyone I showered here." Panicked, Sun Hwa starts packing their belongings into a suitcase in a hurry. She says, "I will take care of everything." Just then, she hears police sirens outside and quickly shuts her curtains. Frightened and in tears, she closes the suitcase and says, "Finish your shower and hurry up." Ho-jun eerily repeats, "Don't tell anyone I showered here." Frustrated Sun Hwa screams, "I won't tell anyone! Hurry up and get out!" Suddenly, her radio switches on by itself. Startled, she looks toward the shower and sees a man dancing inside. He abruptly stops, turns to her, and says, "Don't tell anyone I showered here," before resuming his strange dance. Just then, there's a knock on the door. Sun Hwa peers through the peephole and sees Ho-jun standing outside. At the same moment, the voice inside repeats, "Don't tell anyone I showered here." Her phone rings, and when she answers, it's Ho-jun asking, "Are you at home?" The voice inside echoes again, "Don't tell anyone I showered here." Terrified, Sun Hwa opens the door for Ho-jun. She takes him inside and tells him, "I can hear your voice in there. It keeps saying not to tell anyone you were showering here." The voice repeats the phrase again. Startled, Ho-jun goes inside a room and comes out with a hammer. He cautiously moves toward the shower. Clutching the doorknob, he says menacingly, "I told you not to tell anyone I showered here." He turns to Sun Hwa and asks, "Why did you tell?" Sun Hwa freezes in fear, then notices her walls, now drenched in blood. She turns back and sees Ho-jun standing in front of her, holding his wife's lifeless body by the hair. Just then, we catch a glimpse of another Ho-jun peering out from her room behind. In her front, Ho-jun smiles, and the scene cuts to black. With this starts the Chapter 3, The Salesman. Ji-woo enters an office with windows covered in newspapers, darkening the space. He glances around and calls someone. The sound of a ringing phone comes from under a table, where he discovers a man hiding. Ji-woo asks, "You lived in Gwang-lim's mansion, right? What happened to you there?" The scene transitions to the past, showing the same man browsing online for a women's bracelet. His co-worker interrupts, saying, "The new tenant is complaining that the unit you showed him is different from how you described it." The salesman responds, "What do real estate agents do? We don't sell homes. We market them. We have to present it like it's the best option they have." He then prepares to leave the office. His coworker asks, "Where are you going?" He replies, "To meet a new client." The scene transitions to him showing the apartment to the author. He says, "The water supply here is excellent, sir." He turns on the tap, and after a moment, he notices dirty water coming out of the sink. Later that night, he arrives home. "Honey, I'm home," he says, as he places his bag and keys aside. At the dinner table, he remarks, "The kimchi is really good today." It's then revealed that he's speaking to a doll. He presents her with a bracelet and carefully ties it onto her wrist. Just as he does, the doll's neck snaps, and her head tilts backward. The salesman quickly tries to fix it, saying, "I've already called the headquarters to repair your head." He adjusts it, arranges her hair, sits back, and reassuringly says, "Don't worry," before continuing his meal. Later, while he is sleeping, he hears the sound of water gulping. He initially ignores it, but then hears it again. He gets up and discovers that his sink is overflowing with dirty water. He places his hand inside, only to get cut by something sharp. The gulping sound continues. He puts his hand back in and pulls out the strap of his bag. Startled, he realizes that his bag is missing. The next morning, the plumber removes a clump of women's hair from the sink drain. He says, "It's not easy to clean this." The salesman responds, "Nobody washes their hair in the sink." the plumber remarks. If it wasn't you, it must have been the previous tenant. He continues, it's difficult to remove by hand. I'll need to get a plunger. The salesman agrees, and the plumber adds, but it's quite expensive. The scene cuts to the salesman in the office, searching for the details of the previous tenant so they can cover the cost of the drain repair. His co-worker says, haven't you heard the rumors about the place you live in? The salesman ignores him and proceeds to call the previous tenant. During the call, he hears the sound of water gulping, followed by a man moaning in pain. Startled, the salesman quickly ends the call. Later that night, the salesman checks his sink. Just then, he receives a call. On the call, he informs the person that the doll is wrapped and will be sent the following morning. He requests, please make sure to fix her properly this time. She's very valuable to me. Take good care of her, and disconnects the call. Once the call ends, the salesman hears the gulping sound again. He rushes to check and finds the sink once more filling with dirty water. Frustrated, he turns around and realizes that the doll is missing. He looks around and suddenly, the tap turns off by itself. Upon inspecting it closely, he sees a hand emerging from the sink, gripping the tap and turning it off. Just then, he notices the bracelet he had given the doll lying at his feet. Seeing this, the salesman is filled with fear. The next morning, the salesman's co-worker tells him, I heard that a high school girl died in the Goe-gi-maen-syon. He continues, many people have died and disappeared there. I also heard that it was built by the Goe-gi-maen Church. The followers believed the leader was dead and then committed suicide. Later that night, while the salesman is sitting at the dinner table conversing with the doll, he hears the gulping sound from the sink again. He looks toward the sink, but the sound suddenly stops. When he turns back to the doll, he's horrified to see its face now rotated toward the sink. Terrified, he glances back at the sink and this time sees a head in it. Carefully, he tries to capture it on his phone. Suddenly, the doll behind him falls to the floor. He turns to check, but when he looks back, the doll wrapped in plastic is inexplicably standing in front of him. Just then, the doll's head moves slightly. Panicked, the salesman runs and locks himself in a room. He hears the sound of the doll's footsteps approaching and then a knock at the door. The lights go out and in desperation, he flicks on his lighter. Trembling, he looks around the darkened room. Suddenly, he steps on the plastic sheet the doll was previously wrapped in. Startled, he freezes in fear. At that moment, the doll appears behind him, smiling ominously. The scene abruptly cuts to the present. The salesman mutters, Goe-gi-maen Church. I got cursed because of those crazy followers. The curse will spread to others too. Ji-woo, intrigued, moves the recorder closer to the salesman. He asks, what's wrong with the Goe-gi-maen Church? Fearfully, the salesman replies, I was just marketing it. That's all I did. He takes his hands out, revealing them to be mutilated, half-cut. He pleads, I didn't do anything wrong. The salesman, still trembling, keeps repeating, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just marketing it. His voice growing weaker and more fearful with each word. The scene cuts to Ji-woo in his studio. He starts sketching something on his tab and the scene cuts to the chapter 4, the student. The scene starts with Ji-woo being interviewed. The interviewer reviews his work and remarks, your work is excellent, much better than your previous one. However, the only issue is that the story feels too short. Try to add more content to make it longer. The interviewer then adds, I'll send you a deposit right away, but please don't give it to any other publishers. The scene shifts to Ji-woo as he packs his bag, preparing to leave for the Goe-gi-maen-syon. His girlfriend reminds him, it's your birthday today, and insists he take the day off. However, Ji-woo ignores and leaves, leaving her heartbroken. At the Goe-gi-maen-syon, Ji-woo approaches the caretaker and asks for more stories. The caretaker responds, I have no more stories. Ji-woo persists, saying, I'll pay you for the stories. The caretaker chuckles at the offer. Ji-woo declares, I'll give you whatever you want. The caretaker pauses to think, then begins. It happened on the 6th floor. Ji-woo immediately starts recording. The caretaker continues, there was a young man named Tae-hoon. He had returned after studying abroad. He failed in college and came back. He didn't know where to go, so he sought help from his childhood friend. The scene transitions to the past. The Hoon enters a room, calling out his friend's name, Jae-seok. He glances around. Moments later, Jae-seok emerges from a room in the back. They greet each other warmly and share a brief hug. The scene then shifts to the dinner table. Tae-hoon asks, do you ever clean this place? He follows up, are you always this busy? What do you work on? Jae-seok responds, I'm studying for the civil service exam. Jae-seok begins to scratch his eyes, and Tae-hoon notices the pimples and ulcers on his friend's face. Concerned, he asks. What's that on your face? Jae-seok casually responds, I don't know. I get this sometimes. Taehoon then asks, is it contagious? Jae-seok reassures him, if it was contagious, I would have told you. Taehoon smiles and says, thanks for letting me stay here. I'm here for 2 weeks. Others offered to let me stay with them, but I missed you. Jae-seok replies, you can stay longer. My parents allowed it. Taehoon, curious, asks, your parents? But Jae-seok quickly ignores the question. Taehoon's attention shifts to the food on the table. He notices it looks stale, but Jae-seok is eating it with enthusiasm, seemingly unfazed. Later that night, Jae-seok asks Taehoon, you have so many friends. Why did you come here? Taehoon responds, I already told you. I wanted to see you. He adds, don't you think this place is too dirty? If you're too busy with work, I can clean it up tomorrow. Jae-seok doesn't respond. Taehoon turns to check and notices Jae-seok staring at him. Jae-seok then turns and sleeps. Feeling uneasy, Taehoon also tries to sleep. The next morning, Taehoon wakes up to the sound of a vacuum cleaner. He looks over and sees Jae-seok cleaning the house. Jae-seok says, sorry for the noise. I'll be late today. Just eat whatever's in the fridge. Taehoon agrees. Later, Taehoon opens the fridge and takes out a carton of milk. As he pours it into a bowl, he immediately notices that it has gone bad. He frowns and checks the fridge, discovering spoiled vegetables with a foul smell. His gaze drifts around the room, and he spots a dark patch on the wall, strangely shaped like a human body. He pauses, feeling a sense of unease as he examines it. The next morning, Jae-seok enters a pharmacy, asking for mildew remover. The author interrupts, saying, I was here first. The scene cuts to Taehoon cleaning the entire room. As he scrubs the area around the human-shaped dark patch, he notices a black mark on his finger. Curious, Taehoon's attention shifts to a closed door. He tries to open it, but it's locked. After a brief struggle, he finally manages to open it. Stepping inside, he is immediately hit by a foul smell. His eyes scan the room, and he notices fungi growing on the walls. On one of the walls, there's a family portrait of Jae-seok's family, but the photo is covered in fungus. Later, Jae-seok enters the apartment, and Taehoon informs him that he spent the entire day cleaning the place. Without saying a word, Jae-seok heads straight to the room with the portrait. He looks around and suddenly confronts Taehoon, yelling, how dare you do this to my parents? Give them back. Taehoon pushes him away, and Jae-seok leaves the room in tears. Taehoon begins packing his clothes and calls a friend, asking if he can stay at his place for a while. As he requests the address, his phone suddenly stops working. He notices a human-shaped black patch on the floor. Curious, he touches it to inspect it. Suddenly, something moves behind him, crawling along the ceiling. Startled, he looks back, but when he turns to the floor again, the patch has vanished. At that moment, the door behind him creaks open. As he enters the room, he notices the wall covered in fungus again. He glances around and looks at the painting. Just then, Jae-seok speaks, hiding his face. I'm sorry I got angry at you earlier, but my parents are angry too. When you went abroad and left me alone here, all I had were my parents. Since you're my childhood friend, I convinced them to let you stay here. Jae-seok turns to reveal his face, now grotesque and horrifying. He groans in pain, and Taehoon instinctively steps back in fear. Jae-seok says, stay here with me. Suddenly, hands emerge from the portrait, grabbing Taehoon and pulling him. He screams in agony as Jae-seok steps into the room and closes the door behind him. The scene cuts to the present. Ji-woo asks, why do things like this keep happening here? Is this place really cursed? He continues, I heard from the real estate agent that this building was constructed by cultists. Is that true? The caretaker responds, there's an apartment that's been abandoned for a long time. Maybe you can find out there why these things keep happening. He hands Ji-woo the keys to the apartment and adds, why don't you go and see for yourself? With this begins the final chapter, The Caretaker. The scene opens with Ji-woo's girlfriend celebrating his birthday alone. Feeling his absence, she decides to listen to the cassettes Ji-woo recorded at Goe-gi-maen-syon. As she plays the first cassette, she notices something unusual. Only Ji-woo's voice is audible, asking questions. But there are no responses recorded from the caretaker. Puzzled, she checks another cassette, but it's the same, just a one-sided conversation with only Ji-woo's voice. The caretaker's replies are missing entirely. She realizes something is terribly wrong. The scene shifts to Ji-woo Ji-woo stepping into the elevator on his way to the apartment. As the doors close, he notices a man standing with his back turned. The elevator stops at the 3rd floor, but no one gets on or off. Suddenly, the man softly says, "Hello." Ji-woo doesn't respond, pretending not to hear. The man repeats hello. Ji-woo continues to ignore him. Finally, Ji-woo glances back, only to see the man now facing him, smiling eerily. Overcome with fear, Ji-woo frantically presses the button for the 10th floor. As the elevator nears the 9th floor, the lights begin to flicker erratically. Ji-woo hesitantly starts pressing the door open button repeatedly, his movements growing more frantic. The man slowly reaches out a hand toward Ji-woo. Just as the hand gets close, the doors open abruptly, and Ji-woo runs out. The man is now standing inside the elevator, still smiling. Then the doors close, trapping him inside. As Ji-woo cautiously moves forward, he spots the same man in the distance. Before he can react, the man suddenly starts running toward him. Panicking, Ji-woo turns and sprints down the dimly lit corridors, desperately trying to escape. Ji-woo finds an old almirah and quickly hides inside it. Through a small gap, he sees the strange man slowly walking outside. Suddenly he appears in his front, smiling and then starts crying with blood tears. Ji-woo tightly shuts his eyes, and when he finally opened them, the strange man is gone. Ji-woo cautiously steps out of the almirah, his heart pounding and his body trembling with fear. Ji-woo finally reaches the apartment, opens the door, and steps inside. The room is dimly lit, adorned with numerous paper hangings inscribed with spells. Directly ahead, he notices another door. As he approaches it, he spots a cassette lying on the floor. Picking it up, he plays the tape. Caretaker's voice begins speaking. "If you're hearing this, Ji-woo, it means you're truly seeking the truth." The voice continues. "I need to confess something. I am not the caretaker here. I was once a newcomer, just like you. But unlike you, I didn't come here searching for the truth. It was a late winter night." The scene then shifts to the past, revealing the caretaker with another man named Hee-jong, the same man Ji-woo had seen in the elevator. Hee-jong asks, "Are you sure about this place?" The caretaker replies, "Don't ask too many questions." Hee-jong persists, "How can there be a safe in there? Even if they're religious, wouldn't they keep their money in a bank?" Caretaker says, "Wealth is where the heart is. That's what the cult leader always told his followers. It must be here." The two step out of the car and enter Goe-gi-maen Mansion. They make their way to apartment. Suddenly, Hee-jong stops, alarmed by a faint sound. He whispers, "Did you hear that?" The caretaker replies, "While you were in prison, your mother fell ill. She needs surgery. You can save her with this money." Hee-jong carefully opens the apartment door with his tools. As they step into the dark room, Hee-jong looks around cautiously and notices another door. He moves toward it, but then he notices there's something dripping from the door. He checks and sees that it's blood. Suddenly, a strand of hair slips under the door, and Hee-jong stumbles back in shock. Just then, the caretaker arrives. Hee-jong says, "I saw someone in there." The caretaker steps forward and examines the door. After a brief moment, he turns and smiles, saying, "Who says there's no safe?" He then rushes to another room, where they find a body covered with a cloth inscribed with spells. The caretaker lifts the cloth, revealing an old, lifeless body. The caretaker says this is the cult leader's body. He examined the body, checking the feet, saying, "Maybe he can be resurrected. That's why he's in chains." Hee-jong, still skeptical, asks, "Is there really a safe here?" The caretaker doesn't answer. Instead, he inspects the skull of the cult leader's body. With an eerie calm, he opens the skull's mouth, reaches inside, and pulls out a key. Without a word, he rushes to the door, unlocking it with the key. Inside is an expansive, pitch-black area where his flashlight can't reach. He extends his hand cautiously, pulling it back suddenly as if startled. After a brief pause, he tries again, this time grabbing a large bundle of money. His face lights up with joy, and he starts stuffing the money into his bag. He yells, "I told you there was money here. We're rich." He continues to fill his bag, but then Hee-jong hears a faint tinkling sound. He looks back at the body lying on another room. Suddenly, the caretaker vanishes. The tinkling sound grows louder. Hee-jong decides he needs to leave. As he starts to fill his bag with more money, the tinkling sound echoes once more. Looking back, Hee-jong freezes. He sees the bodies standing at a distance. The body begins to move sideways. Hee-jong is paralyzed with fear. Desperately, he runs toward the door, but the lock won't budge. He stops and glances behind him. Something drips from above. When he looks up, he sees some strange liquid on the ceiling. Relieved, he looks down and is horrified to find the body standing right in front of him. He stumbles backward. He scrambles to his feet and bolts through the corridors, eventually reaching the car. As he sits in, he realizes the car keys are missing. Just then, he hears the tinkling sound again. The caretaker suddenly appears at the window. He opens the door, slides into the car, and sits next to Hee-jong. Hee-jong, still shaken, breathlessly says, "What happened to you?" "Look, I brought all the money." He then asks, "Where is the key?" The caretaker says, "I saw it. In the closet, I saw it." Hee-jong screams, "What did you see?" "Give me the keys. Let's go." The caretaker replies slowly, "Do you want to see it too?" Hee-jong turns around. As he does, he hears the familiar tinkling sound. His gaze drops to the floor, and he sees the body's feet. As he looks up, he finds the body sitting in front of him. In a flash, it lunges at Hee-jong, and he screams in terror. The scene abruptly cuts to the present. The caretaker's voice says, "You know what I saw in the closet?" The closet doors open on their own. Ji-woo freezes. Suddenly, the body appears behind him. Terrified, he stumbles backward into the closet, and the door slams shut. The recorder falls to the floor outside. Inside the closet, Ji-woo watches in terror as the caretaker slowly approaches, a chilling smile spreading across his face. The caretaker says, "The time I spent with you was quite interesting. I will miss you, Ji-woo." He turns away, beginning to leave. Desperate, Ji-woo cries out, pleading for the door to open. But as he watches, the caretaker transforms into Ji-woo, leaving the real Ji-woo trapped inside the closet, crying and utterly devastated. The sound of his sobs fills the air. The scene cuts to Ji-woo's girlfriend arriving at Goe-gi-maen-syon. She steps inside, scanning her surroundings cautiously. Suddenly, she hears a noise from the ceiling, and we see a child standing behind her. Just then, Ji-woo enters through another door. She breathes a sigh of relief and asks, "Ji-woo, what are you doing here?" Ji-woo looks at her with an icy gaze. He smiles, and his eyes turn pitch black. The scene cuts to black as the movie ends here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.